The 5 human cadets stood at attention in the briefing room of the Interstellar Defense Academy. Their blue uniforms were crisp and clean against the metallic walls of the massive space station that orbited Jupiter. Through the viewport behind them, Earth glowed like a blue marble in the distance. Commander Zavkalax paced in front of them. His blue skin reflected the harsh lights from above, and his forearms were clasped behind his back. 2 of his yellow eyes narrowed as he looked at the humans. "You will participate in a standard extraction exercise," he said. His voice had a clicking sound at the end of each sentence. "Your objective is simple. Extract the target from the facility and return to your extraction point." Cadet Olivia Martinez tried not to smile. At 24, she was the oldest of the human cadets and the unofficial leader of their group. She had short black hair and dark eyes that missed nothing. Before joining the academy, she had been a tactical officer in Earth's defense forces. "Simple enough, Commander," she said. "When do we deploy?" Zavkalax made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Always in a rush, you humans. The exercise begins tomorrow at 0600 station time. You will compete against 13 other teams." Cadet Daniel Wright shifted his weight. He was tall with broad shoulders and had spent years as a wilderness survival instructor in Montana before joining the academy. His brown hair was cut short and his green eyes were alert. "Will all teams have the same equipment, sir?" he asked. "Each team will receive gear appropriate to their physiological needs," Zavkalax replied. "Your mission parameters are in your data pads. Study them well." After the commander left, the 5 cadets gathered around a table in their small common room. The station hummed softly around them. "He's hiding something," said Cadet Allison Foster. She was thin with blonde hair tied back in a tight bun. Her fingers moved quickly over her datapad as she scanned the mission details. "These parameters don't make sense." Cadet Kevin Jackson leaned over her shoulder. He was a heavy weapons specialist with dark skin and a shaved head who had grown up in Georgia. "What do you mean?" "Look at the terrain," Allison said, showing them a map of the training moon. Kelvis 4, thin atmosphere, low temperatures, rough mountain ranges. And look at our equipment list compared to what I'd expect for these conditions. Cadet Eric Nguyen frowned. He was their medic with a background in xenobiology. "We're being set up to fail," he said quietly. "This environment would be challenging for humans but nearly impossible for Thalosians like Zavkalax. Why would they choose this location unless they want to prove something?" Olivia finished. "Computer, show me the visitor schedule for the academy this week." The room's AI responded immediately. "The academy is hosting the Galactic Military Observation Committee for the next 3 days. Representatives from 27 member species will observe training exercises and evaluate curriculum." The 5 cadets looked at each other. "So we're the show," Kevin said with a low whistle. "They want to prove humans aren't up to standard." Daniel stood up and stretched. Wouldn't be the first time someone underestimated humans. Allison's fingers continued to fly over her datapad. "I'm looking at the other team's profiles. Ventari, Palaxian, Jorex. All species from moderate or low-gravity worlds. They're built for speed and precision, not endurance." "What about our mission briefing?" Eric asked. Olivia pulled up the detailed maps. "Standard extraction. The target is here in this facility. We need to get in, grab them, and get to the extraction point here, about 20 kilometers away." "Through these mountains," Daniel noted, pointing at a massive range. "The obvious path would be to go around, but that adds another 30 kilometers. Kevin grinned. "They don't think we can handle the mountains." "They're probably right by normal standards," Eric said. "The atmosphere gets thin up there. Temperatures drop below freezing. The other teams will go around." Olivia zoomed in on the mountain range. "Which means we go through? We'll have the element of surprise." "There's something else," Allison said, her voice tense. "I've been comparing our briefing to a cached version I found. The other teams have been given our planned route." "What?" Daniel leaned forward. "They know exactly where we're supposed to go." Allison showed them the file. "They're expecting us to follow this path around the mountains. They've probably set up ambushes all along the way." This isn't an exercise, Olivia said, her eyes hardening. It's a demonstration. They want to show everyone that humans aren't cut out for the interstellar defense forces. Why? Eric asked. We've been part of the Galactic Consortium for 20 years now. And in those 20 years, more humans have advanced to high ranks than any other new species in the Consortium's history, Olivia explained. Some of the older members aren't happy about it. They think we're too aggressive, too unpredictable. Too good, Kevin added with a smile. So what do we do? Eric asked. Olivia looked at her team. We show them exactly what humans from a death world can do. They spent the next 6 hours studying the terrain, the weather patterns, and the other team's capabilities. By the time they finished, it was late in the station's artificial night cycle. We need sleep, Olivia finally said. Tomorrow's going to be rough. What's the plan? Daniel asked. They expect us to follow the rules and fail. So we're going to break every rule they've set up and win. Olivia stood up. Kevin and I will create a diversion. We'll follow the expected route, making lots of noise and drawing attention. While the rest of us, Eric asked, you three will go through the mountains, the path everyone thinks is impossible. You'll get to the target first, extract them, and head for the pickup point. They'll be tracking us, Allison pointed out. Not if you can hack their systems, Olivia replied. Can you do it? Allison thought for a moment. It would be against Academy regulations. So is setting us up to fail in front of the entire Galactic Military Observation Committee, Daniel said. I can do it, Allison decided. I'll need access to their main simulation controls. We'll get you that access, Olivia promised. Just be ready to move quickly once we start. The next morning, the 5 cadets assembled at the deployment bay. Other teams gave them curious or dismissive looks. A group of Ventari with their translucent skin whispered and laughed when the humans walked by. Commander Zavkalak stood at the front with several other officers, including 3 high-ranking officials with insignia from the Galactic Military Observation Committee. One of them, a tall, spindly alien with gray skin, watched the humans with 6 blinking eyes. Cadets, Zavkalak announced. This exercise tests your ability to operate in difficult terrain against opposition with limited resources. Success depends on following proper tactical procedures. His yellow eyes fixed on the human team. This is merely a simulation, not actual combat. Follow the protocols you have been taught. Olivia met his gaze steadily. We understand, Commander. We'll do our best. Zavkalak made that strange laughing sound again. I'm sure you will. Deployment begins in 5 minutes. As they walked to their dropship, Kevin leaned close to Olivia. Did you see the observation deck? It's packed with officials. Good, she replied quietly. More people to witness what happens next. She looked at her team with a small smile. Remember, we're Deathworlders. Let's show them what that really means. The dropship landed with a soft thud on the surface of Kelvis 4. Cold air rushed in as the doors opened. Olivia stepped out first, her breath making small clouds in the thin atmosphere. The sky above was a pale purple, and 2 small moons hung low on the horizon. Around them, rocky terrain stretched toward distant mountains. Temperature is -15 degrees, Eric said, checking his equipment. Oxygen level at 80% of Earth normal. Uncomfortable but manageable, Daniel added, adjusting his pack. Across the landing zone, the other teams were disembarking from their ships. The Ventari team looked especially uncomfortable, their translucent skin already taking on a bluish tinge in the cold. The Palaxians, with their 6 limbs and thick fur, seemed better adapted but moved slowly, clearly affected by the gravity. They really didn't think this through, Kevin whispered. Half these species can barely function in these conditions. That's the point, Olivia replied. They want to show that even in harsh conditions, the other teams can follow procedures better than humans can. Allison was focused on her datapad. I've got access to the simulation network. Basic stuff only for now, but I should be able to get deeper once we're moving. A tone sounded across the landing zone. Commander Zavkalak's voice came through their communication devices. The exercise begins now. Your objective is to extract the target and reach the extraction point. Live fire simulation is active. If you are hit, you will feel a mild shock and your suit will lock for 30 seconds. 3 hits eliminate you from the exercise. Everybody clear on the plan? Olivia asked her team. They all nodded. Kevin and I head east, following the expected route. We make noise, draw attention, make them think we're the main force. She looked at the others. You 3 head north, straight into the mountains. Move fast, stay hidden. We meet at the extraction point. Be careful, Eric said. Those mountains are dangerous even without the simulation hazards. So are we, Daniel replied with a grin. The team split up. Olivia and Kevin headed east, moving along the valley floor toward the long route. Around the mountains, the other 3 headed north, straight toward the imposing mountain range that dominated the horizon. From the observation deck on a small orbiting station, Commander Zav Kalax watched the teams on large screens. Next to him stood Admiral Zen Po, the head of the Galactic Military Observation Committee. The humans have split their forces, Zav Kalax noted. A basic tactical error. Admiral Zen Po's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. Perhaps. Or perhaps a strategy we do not yet understand. There is no strategy, Zav Kalax replied confidently. Humans rely on brute force and luck. They lack the discipline necessary for true military excellence. On the surface, Olivia and Kevin moved quickly along the valley, making no attempt to hide their presence. After about an hour, they encountered the first team lying in wait, a group of Joreks, insectoid aliens with natural camouflage abilities. Contact front, Kevin said, raising his training weapon. The Joreks team opened fire with simulation weapons. Bright pulses of light shot toward the humans. Olivia and Kevin dove for cover behind rocky outcroppings. They returned fire, their shots going wide on purpose. The Joreks advanced, thinking they had the upper hand. Now, Olivia whispered into her comm device. Kevin pulled a small device from his pack and threw it toward the Joreks team. It emitted a bright flash and a loud bang. Not enough to harm anyone, but enough to startle the aliens whose compound eyes were sensitive to bright light. While the Joreks were disoriented, Olivia and Kevin broke from cover and ran in the opposite direction, drawing the alien team away from their position and deeper into the valley. They're taking the bait, Kevin said as they ran. Good. Let's see if we can find more teams to distract, Olivia replied. Meanwhile, Daniel, Eric, and Allison had reached the base of the mountains. The terrain was rough with sharp rocks and steep inclines. The temperature dropped further as they began to climb. According to the maps, there should be a path through these ridges, Daniel said, pointing to a narrow gap between 2 peaks. The simulation has it marked as impassable, Allison noted, checking her datapad. For most species, maybe. Daniel smiled. But we grew up on a death world. This is just another hike. They began to climb. The path was steep and treacherous with loose rocks that threatened to slide out from under their boots. The thin air made breathing difficult, but the 3 humans pressed on. After an hour of climbing, they reached a narrow ledge. Below them, the valley stretched out, and they could see teams moving along the planned routes. Small flashes of light indicated that several groups had engaged each other in simulated combat. Perfect, Eric said. They're all focused on each other. Allison had set up her equipment on the ledge. I'm in their system now. I can access the simulation controls and... She paused, her fingers hovering over the screen. I found something interesting. The target isn't a person. It's a data core. A data core? Daniel asked. That changes things. Instead of extracting a person, we need to retrieve data, Allison explained. That's actually easier. I might be able to access it remotely. Eric looked thoughtful. But we'd still need to reach the extraction point with the data. True, Allison agreed, but this gives us options. They continued their climb. The path narrowed further, and in some places they had to press themselves against the rock face to avoid falling. The cold became more intense, and their breath formed crystals in the air. How are the others doing? Daniel asked as they paused to check their position. Allison checked her datapad. Olivia and Kevin have engaged 3 different teams. They've each taken one hit but eliminated 2 Joreks and 1 Ventari. They're putting on quite a show, Eric said with a smile. In the observation deck, Commander Zavkalax was growing frustrated. The 2 humans in the valley are behaving erratically. They engage, then retreat, then engage again. They're not following any standard tactical pattern. Admiral Zenpo leaned forward. And the other 3 humans, where are they? Zavkalax checked the tracking system. They appear to be attempting to cross the mountain range. He shook his head. A foolish choice. The conditions there are extreme. Yet they move quickly, the Admiral noted, pointing to the tracking dots that showed the humans' progress. Faster than I would have expected. It won't matter, Zavkalax insisted. The facility is heavily guarded. Even if they reach it, they cannot extract the target without being detected. Back on the mountain, Daniel, Eric, and Allison had reached a high pass. The wind howled around them, carrying ice crystals that stung their faces. But from their vantage point, they could see the facility below, a small dome-shaped structure, nestled in a valley on the other side of the mountain range. There it is, Daniel said, pointing. The target location. And no sign of the other teams, Eric added. They all took the long way around. Allison was working on her datapad again. I've hacked into their security systems. I can see the layout of the facility and the location of the data core. How many guards? Daniel asked. 6 simulation drones, Allison replied. But I might be able to disable them temporarily. How long until Olivia and Kevin reach the extraction point? Eric asked. Allison checked the map. At their current pace, about 4 hours. Daniel looked at the darkening sky. Then we have 4 hours to get that data core and meet them there. Let's move, Eric said, adjusting his pack. The temperature will drop further after dark. They began their descent toward the facility, moving carefully but quickly down the steep slope. Above them, the purple sky deepened to indigo as the first stars appeared. Night fell quickly on Kelvis 4. The temperature plummeted to 30 degrees below freezing. Daniel, Eric, and Allison crouched behind a ridge about 200 meters from the facility. Their breath formed small clouds that disappeared quickly, in the dark. Security scan shows 6 drones inside, Allison whispered, looking at her datapad. They're patrolling in pairs. Eric rubbed his hands together for warmth. Any alarms? Standard motion and heat sensors, Allison replied. But I can loop their feed for about 3 minutes at a time, before the system notices. Daniel surveyed the terrain between their position and the facility. 3 minutes isn't much time. It's all we've got, Allison said. The good news is I've located the data core. It's in the central chamber. They watched as 2 drone guards passed by a window. The drones were humanoid in shape but moved with mechanical precision. Each carried a simulation weapon that would deliver a painful shock if it hit. How are Olivia and Kevin doing? Eric asked. Allison checked her datapad again. They've engaged 4 different teams now. The other groups are all focused on them. Then, it's time we move, Daniel said. He checked his equipment one last time. Ready? Both nodded. Allison tapped several commands into her datapad. Security loop active. We have 3 minutes starting now. They moved quickly across the open ground, staying low and using the darkness for cover. The facility's dome loomed larger as they approached. A side door was their target. Allison had identified it as the least monitored entrance. Daniel reached it first and pressed his hand against the control panel. Allison had already bypassed the security code, and the door slid open silently. They slipped inside just as Allison's datapad beeped softly. Loop ending, she whispered. Freeze. They stood completely still as the security system reset. A drone passed by at the end of the corridor but didn't turn in their direction. After it disappeared around a corner, they began to move again. Central chamber is down this hallway, Allison directed. 2 levels down. They found a stairwell and descended quickly. The facility was eerily quiet except for the soft hum of machinery. The lighting was dim, set for alien species whose eyes were more sensitive than human ones. On the 2nd level down, they heard the mechanical whir of approaching drones. Daniel pointed to a side room, and they ducked inside just as two drones marched past. Close, Eric whispered. The central chamber is just ahead, Allison said, checking her datapad. But there are two drones guarding it. Daniel peered out into the hallway. We need a distraction. Eric reached into his pack and pulled out a small device. Medical scanner. If I reconfigure it. He made some adjustments. It'll emit a signal that the drones will register as a malfunction in another part of the facility. How long will that distract them? Daniel asked. Maybe a minute, Eric replied. Not long. It'll have to do, Allison said. I'll need at least 30 seconds to download the data core. Eric finished modifying the scanner and activated it. He placed it in the hallway, pointing away from the central chamber. The device began to emit a soft pulsing signal. Almost immediately, they heard the drones respond. Mechanical voices communicated with each other, and then the sound of their movement grew fainter as they headed toward the false signal. Now, Daniel said. They moved quickly to the central chamber. The door was locked, but Allison's hack worked. Again. Inside, a glowing column stood in the center of the room. The data core. Allison connected her datapad to the core's interface. Beginning download. Hurry, Eric urged, watching the doorway. 30 seconds, Allison replied, her eyes fixed on the progress bar on her screen. Meanwhile, in the valley below, Olivia and Kevin were engaged in another firefight. They had taken position behind a large boulder, as 3 different alien teams fired simulation rounds at them. They're really angry now, Kevin said with a grin as he returned fire. His weapon emitted bright pulses of light that forced a Palaxian cadet to duck for cover. Good, Olivia replied. The more focused they are on us, the better chance the others have. She fired a series of shots that kept a Ventari team pinned down. Any word from Allison? Kevin checked his communicator. Last update was 10 minutes ago. They reached the facility. In the observation deck, Commander Zav Kalax was growing more agitated by the minute. The humans in the valley are holding off 3 teams by themselves, he said, his 4 hands moving rapidly over the control panels. This is not possible. Admiral Zenpo watched with growing interest. And the other 3 humans? Zav Kalax checked the tracking system. Their signals disappeared from our monitors over an hour ago. They must have been eliminated in the mountains. Are you certain? The Admiral asked. Check the facility sensors. Zav Kalax did so, and his yellow eyes widened. Impossible. The security system shows no breaches, but... He tapped more commands. There's a data transfer in progress from the core. Back in the facility, Allison's datapad chimed softly. Download. Complete, she said, disconnecting from the interface. I have the data. Time to go, Daniel said. Different route out. They'll be guarding the way we came in. They left the central chamber and took a different corridor. Allison consulted her. There's a maintenance exit this way. It leads to the rear of the facility. They had almost reached it when an alarm suddenly blared through the facility. Red lights flashed along the walls. They've discovered the breach, Eric said. Run, Daniel urged. They sprinted for the exit. Behind them, they could hear the mechanical sounds of drones converging on their position. The door at the end of the corridor was their only way out. Allison reached it first and slammed her hand on the control panel. The door slid open, revealing the cold night air. They rushed outside just as the first drone rounded the corner behind them. Split up, Daniel ordered. Meet at the rendezvous point in 30 minutes. They ran in different directions, disappearing into the darkness as simulation rounds fired after them. The shots missed, striking snow and rock instead. In the observation deck, Zav Kalax was frantically trying to track the humans. How did they get inside without triggering the alarms? How did they access the data core? Admiral Zenpo said nothing, but his 6 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of deep interest among his species. Daniel, Eric, and Allison regrouped 30 minutes later at their predetermined meeting point, a small cave in the foothills leading toward the extraction point. Everyone make it out okay? Daniel asked, catching his breath. No hits, Eric confirmed. The drones couldn't track us in the dark. And I still have the data, Allison added, patting her datapad. Complete download of the target information. Now we just need to reach the extraction point, Daniel said. It's about 10 kilometers from here, mostly downhill. What about Olivia? And Kevin? Eric asked. Allison checked her communicator. They're still keeping the other teams busy, but they'll start making their way to the extraction point soon. Then we should get moving, Daniel said. If we hurry, we can be there waiting for them. They set off again, moving through the night, with confidence born from years of training on their own death world. The cold that made other species sluggish and weak barely slowed them down. The terrain that alien cadets found impossible to navigate was just another challenge to overcome. As they traveled, the first light of dawn began to touch the horizon, casting long shadows across the frozen landscape of Kelvis 4. The extraction point was getting closer with every step. The sun rose over Kelvis Tier, painting the icy landscape in shades of orange and gold. Daniel, Eric, and Allison moved steadily toward the extraction point. They had been traveling for hours, making good time despite the rough terrain. 2 kilometers. To go, Allison said, checking her map. They had reached a ridge overlooking a wide valley. At the far end, a small clearing marked the extraction point where ships would arrive at the end of the exercise. Any sign of the other teams? Daniel asked. Allison tapped her datapad. Most of them are still back in the main valley. 3 teams have been completely eliminated from the exercise. 2 more are down to their last member. Eric smiled. Olivia and Kevin have been busy. Speaking of which, Allison said, they're on the move now, heading for the extraction point. How far behind us are they? Daniel asked. About an hour, but... Allison frowned. They've got company. Looks like the remaining teams have figured out what's happening. They're all converging on the extraction point. Daniel surveyed the valley below them. We need to secure the extraction point before they arrive. They started down the ridge, moving carefully on the steep slope. The ground was slippery with frost and loose rocks tumbled down ahead of them. Despite the difficult conditions, they made good progress. In the main valley, Olivia and Kevin were running hard. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of pursuit. After hours of playing decoy, they were finally heading for the extraction point. 4 teams on our tail, Kevin said between breaths. They're not happy. Just keep moving, Olivia replied. We just need to reach the others. A simulation round whizzed past Kevin's head. He ducked instinctively but kept running. More shots followed, striking the ground around them. They're getting better at aiming, Kevin noted. Olivia glanced back. They've had plenty of practice on us. In the observation deck, the atmosphere had changed dramatically. What had started as a simple demonstration was now the subject of intense discussion among the alien officers. Commander Zavkalak stood rigidly, his blue skin darkening with stress. The humans have the data core, he reported to Admiral Zenpo, and they're approaching the extraction point ahead of all other teams. How? The Admiral asked, his 6 eyes fixed on the main screen. The mountain crossing was supposed to be impossible. I don't know, Zavkalak admitted. They shouldn't have been able to survive those conditions, let alone move so quickly through them. Another officer, a Jorex with shimmering insect-like features, joined the conversation. Their performance contradicts all our assessments of human capabilities. Perhaps our assessments were wrong, Admiral Zenpo suggested. Down on the surface, Daniel, Eric, and Allison had reached the valley floor. The extraction point was visible in the distance, a flat clearing marked with landing beacons. As they approached, they noticed movement ahead. We're not alone, Eric warned. Daniel raised his hand, signaling them to stop. Cover now. They took positions behind a cluster of large rocks. From there, they could see 2 alien cadets, Ventari with their translucent skin, guarding the extraction point. They must have figured out the real objective, Allison whispered. They're waiting to ambush anyone who arrives. Can we go around them? Eric asked. Daniel studied the terrain. No cover. They'd see us coming. I could try to hack their communication systems, Allison suggested. Create a false order to move elsewhere. Do it, Daniel agreed. Allison worked quickly on her datapad. After a few minutes, she looked up. Done. They should be receiving new instructions now. They watched as the two Ventari cadets checked their communication devices. The aliens looked confused for a moment, then turned and moved away from the extraction point, heading toward the eastern ridge. "Nice work," Daniel said. "Let's move before they realize it was fake." They hurried toward the extraction point. Once there, Allison connected her datapad to the beacon system. "I'm registering our completion of the objective," she explained. "This will signal that we have the data core and are ready for extraction." "How long until Olivia and Kevin get here?" Eric asked. Allison checked her map. "They should be coming over that ridge any minute now, but they've got at least 4 teams in pursuit." "Then we need to be ready to cover them," Daniel said, checking his simulation weapon. "If they get hit 3 times before reaching us, they're out of the exercise." On the ridge above the extraction point, Olivia and Kevin appeared, running at full speed. Behind them, several alien cadets were in pursuit. 2 Palaxians, 3 Jorex, and a single Ventari. "There they are," Eric pointed. "And there's the welcome party," Daniel added, nodding toward the pursuers. "Positions now. We need to give them covering fire." They spread out, taking defensive positions around the extraction point. Daniel raised his weapon and began firing simulation rounds toward the pursuing aliens. Eric and Allison joined in, creating a barrage that forced the alien cadets to take cover. Taking advantage of the covering fire, Olivia and Kevin sprinted the last 100 meters to the extraction point. They were breathing hard, their faces red with exertion, but both were grinning. "Took you long enough," Daniel called to them. "We were busy making friends," Kevin replied, dropping to take cover beside him. Olivia joined Allison behind a large rock. "You got the data core?" Allison patted her datapad. "Complete download, mission accomplished." "Not quite yet," Olivia said, looking back at the ridge where more alien cadets were appearing. "We still need to hold this position until extraction." The alien teams had regrouped and were advancing cautiously toward the extraction point. They had the humans surrounded with teams approaching from multiple directions. 8 of them total, Eric counted. All the remaining teams have joined forces. "Against 5 humans," Kevin said with a smile. "Hardly seems fair." "For them," Daniel added. Olivia checked the time. "Extraction ships will arrive in 15 minutes. We just need to hold out until then." The first wave of aliens attacked from the east, 3 Jorex using their natural camouflage to blend with the rocks. They fired a series of quick shots. As they advanced, the humans returned fire, forcing the Jorex to retreat. But it was only a diversion. From the west, 4 more aliens rushed forward. "Watch the flanks," Olivia called out. The firefight intensified. Simulation rounds flew in all directions. Eric took a hit to the shoulder, his second of the exercise. Kevin caught one in the leg but kept firing from his position. In the observation deck, the IEDI alien officers watched in stunned silence as the 5 humans held off the combined forces of 8 alien cadets. What should have been an easy victory for the alien teams was turning into a desperate last stand. "Their tactics are unorthodox," the Jorex officer noted. "But effective." Admiral Zenpo nodded slowly. "They are Deathworlders. Perhaps we have underestimated what that truly means." On the surface, the extraction ships appeared in the sky, 5 small craft descending toward the clearing. The sight of them renewed the alien team's efforts. They launched one final coordinated attack. "From all sides, here they come," Daniel shouted. "Hold the line." The final attack came from all sides at once. The alien cadets had coordinated their efforts using hand signals to time their assault. They rushed toward the extraction point where the 5 humans had taken defensive positions. "Here they come," Olivia called out. "Make every shot count." The humans fired with precision, each shot aimed carefully. 2 Palaxians fell back, their suits locking as simulation hits registered. A Jorex tried to flank them but was spotted by Kevin, who quickly took the alien out of the exercise. The extraction ships continued their descent, now only 100 meters above the ground. Their engines whined loudly, kicking up swirls of frost and dust. 1 minute to extraction, Allison reported, checking her datapad while keeping her head down. Eric took another hit, his third, his suit locked up completely, the simulation removing him from combat. I'm out, he called, unable to move. Cover him, Olivia ordered. Daniel shifted position to protect Eric, firing rapidly to keep the advancing aliens at bay. Kevin had moved to higher ground, using a rock formation to gain a better angle. From there, he managed to eliminate another Jorex, but the aliens were adapting quickly. A Venturi had worked its way around to their left flank, using the distraction of the main attack to get close. It fired 3 quick shots at Allison. She dodged the first 2, but the third caught her in the side. Her suit indicated it was her. Second hit. Almost got me, she muttered, returning fire. The Venturi ducked behind cover, but Olivia had spotted it. She fired twice, and both shots found their mark. The Venturi's suit locked, eliminating it from the exercise. In the observation deck, the alien officers watched in amazement. What had begun as a demonstration of human inadequacy had become something entirely different. They're going to succeed, Commander Zavkalak said, his voice filled with disbelief. 5 humans against the best cadets from 13 different species. Admiral Zenpo nodded slowly. Not just succeed, they're dominating the exercise. On the ground, the remaining aliens made one final push. 4 cadets rushed forward together, 2 Jorex and 2 Palaxians. They fired continuously as they advanced, forcing the humans to take cover. They're trying to reach the ships before us, Kevin called out. Olivia made a quick decision. Daniel, get Allison and Eric to the nearest ship. Kevin and I will hold them off. Daniel nodded. He helped Eric to his feet. The simulation allowed basic movement for extraction purposes even when a cadet was eliminated. With Allison covering them, they made a run for the closest ship that had now landed. Kevin and Olivia laid down suppressive fire, keeping the aliens pinned behind rocks and ridges. But their position was becoming more exposed as the aliens spread out. A shot hit Kevin in the chest, his third strike. His suit locked up. I'm out, he called to Olivia. Fall back to the ship, she ordered. I'll cover you. Kevin began moving awkwardly toward the extraction ship. Olivia fired continuously, moving from position to position to confuse the aliens about her location. The aliens saw their chance. With only one human still actively fighting, they charged forward. Olivia met their charge with calm precision. Her first 2 shots eliminated a Palaxian. Her next 3 drove a Jorex back into cover, but she was outnumbered. A shot struck her arm, her second hit. One more, and she would be eliminated. In that moment, something unexpected happened. One of the alien cadets, a Jorex with distinctive markings, stepped forward with his hands raised. The universal gesture of surrender. Olivia paused, her weapon still aimed at the alien. The Jorex spoke, his translator converting his clicks and whistles to standard language. We surrender. You have won. One by one, the remaining aliens lowered their weapons. They had realized the futility of continuing the fight. In the observation deck, there was stunned silence. Did they just... Commander Zavkalax couldn't finish his sentence. Surrender. Admiral Zenpo completed it for him. Yes, they did. On the surface. Olivia approached the surrendering aliens cautiously. You're surrendering a training exercise. The Jorex cadet's compound eyes reflected the light of the rising sun. We recognize superior tactics and ability. To continue would be pointless. You have outmaneuvered us at every turn. The other aliens nodded in agreement. A Palaxian stepped forward. We have never seen such adaptation to harsh conditions, or such effective teamwork with so few resources. Olivia lowered her weapon. Then let's all proceed to extraction. The exercise is over. Together, humans and aliens walked to the waiting ships. As they boarded, there was a new feeling in the air, not resentment or anger, but respect. The ships lifted off, carrying them back to the Academy station orbiting Jupiter. In the lead ship, the 5 human cadets sat together, tired but triumphant. We did it, Kevin said, his suit now unlocked as they left the exercise zone. Mission accomplished, Daniel agreed. Allison held up her datapad. Data core secured. Target. Extracted, and we made it to the extraction point ahead of schedule. Eric looked out the viewport at the purple sky of Kelvis 4 growing distant below them. Do you think they understand now what it means to be from Earth? If they don't, Olivia said with a small smile, they will soon. 3 hours later, the 5 cadets stood at attention in the main briefing room of the Academy. Before them stood Admiral Zenpo, Commander Zavkalax, and the entire Galactic Military Observation Committee. The room was filled with officers from dozens of species. Cadets, Admiral Zenpo began, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. What we witnessed today was unprecedented. Commander Zavkalax stepped forward. His blue skin had darkened slightly, a sign of embarrassment among his species. The exercise was designed to test the limits of your abilities. We underestimated those limits significantly. You were meant to follow protocols, he continued. Instead, you adapted, improvised, and succeeded where no one thought success was possible. Admiral, Zenpo raised one of his 4 hands. The term Deathworlder has often been used to describe humans, sometimes with fear, sometimes with derision. After today, I believe it will be used with new meaning, with respect. He stepped closer to the human cadets. You not only completed the mission under circumstances designed to be impossible for your species, but you did so while demonstrating tactical innovation that our instructors are already studying. And, the Admiral added, you are the first team in the history of the Academy to receive a surrender in a training exercise. The room was silent for a moment. Then a Jorex officer began to tap his claws against his armor, the equivalent of applause in his culture. Others joined in, each species showing appreciation in their own way. The sound grew until it filled the entire room. Commander Zavkalax looked at the human cadets with new eyes. It seems we have much to learn from Earth. Perhaps being from a death world is not a disadvantage after all. Olivia straightened her posture even more. Thank you, sir. We're just doing what humans have always done, adapting to survive and thrive in challenging conditions. It's who we are. As they left the briefing room, the 5 cadets could feel the change in how the alien cadets and officers looked at them. Gone were the dismissive glances and whispered comments. In their place were expressions of curiosity, interest, and respect. Earth's Deathworlders had proven themselves, and the galaxy would never be the same.